part, and it's so true because I work for a female artist, and she's able to really, outside of even talent, just like on a personal level, take care, and like we have like this natural tendency to nurture and to hear out and to receive and listen, and she can take such and does take such good care of the people within her camp, and people respect her as a woman in that role just for that alone. They see the intentionality, the care to details too, I think is a big thing. And that stuff people really appreciate and sometimes can get swept under the rug, but people really do appreciate those small details and paying attention to them and taking them into account. So,
yeah, that's fantastic. Somewhat of a similar question, but it maybe does actually expand the conversation a little bit. I am kind of curious what you like about being a female in the arts or in the industry. Not just what is perceived as an advantage to you or what has been helpful to you because you are a woman, but what do you just genuinely like about being a woman in the industry?
the wardrobe.
Yeah, I was going to say, I got a shower room a lot of the time. That's really nice.
Yep. Own hotel room. You don't have to. Yeah. Yes. That was my fun answer. I'll think of it.
It's legitimate.
Yeah. Kind of related to that is I feel like there's this permission to create yourself, right, in a different way in the arts and being a woman, because you're kind of writing your own rules in ways. You've got these beautiful examples and people you can emulate, but it's kind of like, well, you can, you get to choose your persona a little bit, and that's kind of fun. I had another thought. We'll see if I remember it while you guys are going. Oh, I remember what it is. Okay. This is completely silly. So I know it just took me a minute. So I do like it whenever, especially I think when I was younger and I was trying to show up the boys, right? And in bluegrass circles where I kind of cut my teeth on things, they get great pleasure out of playing just super fast, right? And so if I could keep up with them and they're like, oh, you can hang, and so there was great pleasure in being like, yeah, I can hang.
Yeah, that's pretty fun when you prove that, when you change their mindset a little bit, because you are opposite of what they're expecting, or even just a little bit different than what they're expecting, and they're like, oh, she's awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're in the club, right?
Yeah.
I just love that as a woman in a particularly male-dominant field, to be that example for other little girls and guys, and to let them know it is possible and they can do it, and encourage them in that, has been my most favorite part of just specifically being a woman in the entertainment field, and being able to nurture people in that way and inspire others, as I was inspired by women that came before me in the industry. And it's just that's the most fruitful part about it for me personally, is just seeing people reaching out and being like, thank you, I am trying to get this opportunity. It's been really particularly hard for me, and to see that you've been through this and you still were able to be true to yourself and were respected in that process, is that shows me that I don't have to change anything about me, and I can still stay true to myself and have a place in that field, and in that spot. And that feedback is what fills my heart the most and makes me feel like that is success to me, to know that it was helpful to somebody else and helps them in their position. So.
Okay, so we're off going to just so many great things about being a woman, right? But now, additional real talk. What are the challenges? And so as you think about your experience in your career, your involvement in the arts, in the industry, what are some of the really noticeable, difficult things that you're up against or that you face? What are those challenges?
A big one for me that I kind of already mentioned is stepping into a leadership role in an area where there's not a lot of women to begin with, and then to have to be in charge. It's definitely challenging, and it's also challenging to not give in to, trying to figure out how to word this, to not give in to what you think the perceived stereotype is. I was actually recently on tour, and a good friend of mine was like, you know, I think you're a really great crew chief, I think this, and we were talking about leadership and how it's different in a leadership role as a woman versus a male. And I will clean it up a little bit, but essentially I was like, you know, as a woman, if I am too stern or I'm too loud or something, then I'm a B word, right? So, and he looks at me, he's like, no. He's like, you're not. He's like, you should be if you have to be, and you shouldn't let the fact that you think someone else is going to interpret that change the way that you're going to act in a situation where you need to be firm leadership, or you need to tell someone that they have to do better. And I actually find that very challenging, is like knowing that I think these certain things exist, and they probably do among some people, but I should still figure out how to be myself and be a leader, and not necessarily a leader who is a woman, just a good leader. So that's very challenging.
So based off of your experience, then what advice would you have for people who that is for them a struggle?
Yeah, I would definitely try to focus on making it less a thought about how are my actions related to my gender, and how are my actions related to getting a team to operate the way that I would like. So I'm not saying you should go be mean or rude to people, you know, but it's also like, okay, I need to tell this person that they're doing a nice job or a bad job, and how can I do that in a way that is effective to portraying what I need to, and not carrying along all of the other baggage.
Yeah, for sure. Making sure that you're real focused on the standards you have, right? Okay, so other challenges that we want to bring up.
Oh man,
Let's just start going down the list.
One that comes to mind and that we kind of looked at a little bit as a group, just in our thoughts of things to share, is if you are having a family, what do you do? And I recognize that for myself, that who doesn't have kids, that it's something that I've delayed, you know, and that I don't know if I'm going to have kids. We'll just see. But but there's this expectation and assumption. And I remember at one gig there was, you know, people chatting with you afterwards and saying, oh, you know, where do you live and are you married? All these things, just because they're curious, right? And they're like, oh, well, this is nice that you can do this now. You know, the assumption being like, oh, well, once you settle down and get this music thing kind of out of your system, and you know, so that can be challenging. Just explaining that to other people of like, no, this music thing, it's always going to be a part of who I am and whatever role that looks like. And I guess other societal expectations or personal expectations of how do you find that balance, right, between work and family and those expectations. So that's a little challenging, and I think too, like you're saying, just the how do I be assertive and a clear enough communicator that and that I'm still treating people with respect and not getting so caught up in my head of how I'm perceived, that I'm serving the music, that I'm serving the band, that I'm serving the thing. And I think that's been kind of you know, circling back to that of how I've tried to rearrange things in my own mind whenever I get too caught up of like, okay, am I serving the group? Am I serving the music? Is my own ego getting in there too much? So
I am kind of going to bounce off that a little bit as far as like your family goals and just all of those sort of things, because my husband and I actually are in that season of life where we are talking about those things, and starting a family has always been a goal of both of ours eventually. But if I were to become a mother one day, which I do hope, you know, the mother is like the source of a lot of things for a child and for a household. And I've seen many women who have had to have lost their positions in the bands they were in because one of them had asked if they could bring their baby on the road because they breastfeed and the baby needs them, but also the mom has that income. And in certain situations, certainly is in our situation where breadwinners, that they make the majority of the household income, and nobody wants a screaming baby on a bus when they're all trying to sleep, make it to the next gig, and they had to be turned down and quit. But I've also, on the other side of that, seen a lot of women who do go on to have families and they make it work and they are crushing it. In fact, we have a fiddle player and one of with the other artists that we work with who is a mom of 3 and just kept going and made that her goal of like, this is what makes me and this is where I find myself, and if I can't be myself, then that's not good for my family. And she's crushing it, and an incredible fiddle player. So yeah, that's a challenge for sure. Also, for me, this sounds kind of like a get over yourself sort of situation, but as being one of the only female people out there in our group, all the guys, they don't have anything to worry about as far as getting ready, and something as small as that you wouldn't think is a big deal, but like I also kind of double dip. I run merchandise out there for this artist as well, and so I'm first thing we unload, we do sound check, I bounce and go set up the merch. Everyone's chilling and eating and getting to have all this downtime and relaxation. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm barely gonna make it to the stage with the shoe on. And so I found that as a personal challenge for me. It's not super like big deal, but
I can relate.
So anyway, that's my take on certain things.
Yeah, I think back to where the conversation kind of started when it started to go down this line, motherhood and having a family. Let's say having a family. I mean, that is an issue that males deal with too, and I understand that. I have a brother who's a touring musician, and I know that family is, that's something that complicates that. It complicates every job in a way, right? And also it makes life great in many ways too. So, it's good, it's hard. I think that for me, so I have 4 children, and I remember the first time I left my kids to fly out for a jazz festival, and the guilt that I had for that was very real, where there was that oh my gosh, maybe I am doing the wrong thing, you know what I mean? And there was a nice paycheck with that, so being a breadwinner, it's you do need to do this, this is for this baby, but also, I feel kind of not great about what I'm doing right now. And that's a real challenge. And I hear oftentimes women talk about the complexities of being a mother, right, and working in any industry, but maybe in the arts especially. I hear that because that's where I live, and so I talk to people in the arts a lot. But there are so many great things too, right? Jamie, can you speak to maybe how motherhood actually helps in a way?
Yeah, I'm a new mother. My wife has 2 kids, 7 and 11, so the past couple years I've been adjusting because I've always been just, flying solo for a long time, doing whatever I wanted. And so, like I said, the benefit of it is just the fulfillment of having that. I wouldn't trade for the world. I wouldn't trade anything. So that's a lot, because I'm still fairly new at it, going through the growing pains of sleep schedules and routines, the common things, the adjustment, but the benefit and the I don't know, I'm just overwhelmed with that. The love and it has fulfilled and continues to fulfill that thing in me that's oh my gosh, I'm a part of this, helping create this human, this. Yeah. They're growing up. What the, all of that. If I could articulate it better, I would. But that's what I would say. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, it's interesting because I think when I started having children, like I had a couple professionals in my life who, they didn't come out and say that's a bad idea, but they kind of came out and said that's a bad idea. You know what I mean? Where it's like, if you choose this, you are saying goodbye to all these other opportunities that you were like being handed. You hadn't quite reached out and grabbed them yet, but I was in a position when my first son was born where there were some nice things being offered to me in that year. And I remember like one of my mentors at the time just essentially saying like, yeah, if you really are gonna be a mom, this goes away and you'll never get it back. Like, this is just how it works. You'll age out. Like, it's not gonna be there for you when you feel like you can really do this. And then attached to that, kind of like all these warnings about like what else it will shut down in your life, you know, and as a professional. And it's interesting because I look back on it now, and I think what they didn't realize is how, in my experience as an artist, the most creatively nurturing thing you can do is spend time with a child. I am so advantaged to all of my coworkers who do not have young kids around them because I get to talk to little people and like see how things work for them, and that is better than any like, oh, I went out to the woods to kind of like get in my head and write a song. It's like, that's fine, I'm not downplaying that, but honestly you would write a heck of a lot better song if you went and hung out with 3-year-olds for an hour. You know what I mean? Like that is just where the creative magic is. And so honestly, I just feel so blessed that like motherhood did that for me. It actually made me think again about creativity, not in this way where like lots of smart people like to talk about it and write about it and lecture about it, but in the raw, real way it exists, you know? It's like, okay, cool, this isn't like some scholar telling me how to be creative. This is like an actual creative human showing me how to go back to that, you know? And that affects my musicianship, that affects my writing, oh, so much more than any kind of nature walk or like, I just journaled, all good things, but it's like, gosh, no, you are not even tapping into like, you know, one of the million layers of what there is there that you start to realize when you're with a child. So I feel that that's been actually a huge advantage for me in the arts, is being a mom because of that and what I've gotten out of my children and their creativity. Okay, so let's talk about like, I gotta check our time here. I know that we probably could just keep going, but let's talk about other women, okay? And how other women can be a great advantage and also the great challenge, right? Both. So with your experiences, maybe let's start first of all with the challenges of that. Have you had any experiences or have some insight you want to share? Words of wisdom, advice, whatever, that relate to this topic, how other women can actually be the reason this problem continues to exist. The problem of being a woman in the arts or in the industry is very, very challenging.
I guess something that I will say that is really important to remember, I think, is that it's not a zero-sum game. Like, something someone else gets or something someone else doesn't necessarily, it's hard to say it doesn't directly affect you when we're having a conversation, because perception and experience is a lot of what colors people's sort of biases and assumptions and things like that. But I do think it's really important to like see other women and build them up or help grow them, especially now in a leadership position. Like, I would never want to look at a woman as a PA tech, which is kind of our beginning role, and be like, oh, they're not doing this and it must just be because it's their women, or insert other kind of gender specific reason that somebody would act a certain way, right? So being really encouraging to them and helping grow them as a person and encourage people. And if somebody is doing something that, and I love what you said about serving your team and serving your band and your music, like that's it. Like, so helping other people figure out how to serve the team, the goal, the like family on the road as best they can, and helping grow that instead of sort of like, well, they do this or they don't do this, or that's exactly why people don't like to have women around. Like, then you're just part of the problem. Right. So I think that's really important, is to remember that like they're not taking something away from you, you have been given an opportunity to help someone else on their journey. So,
That's really good.
yeah.
On just as a goodness, I would not be where I am today if a woman hadn't been so kind to help me out and give me that opportunity. I think it's easy for us to get really comparative and maybe jealousy and envious and I, there's some rattiness that happens out there with that, but I will never forget her giving me that chance and saying, this is what keeps us going. Like, this is what I live for, to help the next person. Because I won't always be here, and the next person comes along. And it's so important to help each other out along the way. The majority of people that have the positions they were given were because somebody was kind and gave them access to things that they couldn't get for themselves, and were helpful and were willing to humble themselves and help somebody else out. And I've been told a lot recently from my boss, and she's just constantly encouraged. There's been many times where I thought I would need to step down and quit because it got too hard or just mental health things, and she was there to pour into me and to keep me going and continue to give me opportunities that I never dreamed I'd be able to have, and that has completely changed my life and has set me up and has given me an example to follow and to do that and hit it on to the next person. And it's just a beautiful thing, and it's just so important. Like, you need each other, and we need each other. And even if you get to a spot where you feel like I feel like I'm on top of the world in this position, it's a dream job, but I'll always need correction, and I'll always need accountability. And there's people that are younger than me that teach me a lot of things, and I learn from them. And I follow Hadley Joe, and we've actually done a couple things together, and I'm like, wow, just a certain way she held herself is like, I need to remember that, and just, if you can really humble yourself and know that we're all on the same playing field, even if your rank and on a piece of paper it says you're here and this person's here, like, we're all here. So it's changed my life, that specific thing. So.
Yeah, and I love what you said about, again, this word keeps coming up today, about opportunity, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think back over the 25 years that I've taught at like a collegiate level, and so many times I have this experience where maybe a female out working, maybe even still a student, will be like, wow, it just really is hard being a woman doing this. I'm like, yeah, like that's a real thing. There are so many reasons why it's really, really difficult. And then they just go on and on and on about how it's hard. I'm like, yes, check, I understand all this. But then I sometimes have this question where I'm like, okay, so what female producer have you worked with? Well, I haven't. I always hired men. What females did you hire in your band? I didn't. I always hired men. It's like, are you helping then resolve the very thing that you realize is problematic? Not really. I actually really admire women who hire other women. And not just to say I hired a woman, but to find the woman who's good at the job and hire that woman, right? To give them a chance. Because oftentimes we see that is why the numbers are so skewed, that there are fewer women. They just haven't been given the chance. Like, I literally looked it up before today. I looked it up last night on Billboard, what the percentage of women versus men are right now in different parts of the music industry. And with all the music that was released last year in the United States, in terms of how many producer credits were given, 6% women. Right? That's pretty striking. Out of all the songwriters credited with the music that was released, 19% female, the rest male. Executive roles in the music industry reported in 2024, 38% women. Right? So men still very much occupy this space and consequently have a lot of capacity to say who gets the opportunity, right? And so to me, it's like, if you are a woman working and you have a chance, if you have a chance to invest in another female to give them that opportunity, oh my gosh, do it. Right, gamble on that, let them try. And again, I'm not saying just because they're a woman, back to my story, she won because she's a girl. Not that, but to find the woman who's capable, because they're out there, and give them the job. Make that female your producer.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if you love and trust this man, at least let her try.
Yes.
That is how a lot of this starts to change, is just because of other women's decisions and how they invest in other women.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have actually a few other things here. I want to keep checking the time because I want to make sure that we don't conflict with anything else that's going on today. Oh, I am kind of curious about this. For me, when I was growing up, and I am just slightly older than all of you, so this may not be as problematic, but I remember that one of the challenges, at least what felt, I don't think I felt this as this is so hard. It was just oh, this is weird. It was really difficult to find a mentor who seemed to really understand the journey I wanted to go on and that I was on. I had no female teachers, ever. And I had phenomenal guitar instructors. I am so grateful for all of the incredible genius men that taught me. But they were all men, right? There was not a single female that I ever took a lesson from. Never. I did not have any female colleagues. Still to this day, I teach in this program, right, and there are females who teach voice, but in the guitar faculty that I oversee, they're all men. I've never had a mentor that was female in music. I think that I learned later in life to find them in other places and to really value what they could offer from their background and their perspective. But I'm just kind of curious if that ever also became something that you thought about or wondered about, where's that mentor that's like me?
Right. Yeah. I think, like you say, I drew from different people and still do that. And so I had in Missy Raines an example of a female bass player who was out there doing her thing and who was being a band leader and other things, and Alison Brown and other people in the Americana world that were, strong females out there doing it and having families doing, but yeah, as far as someone who is more accessible, right, there to kind of walk with me, I think it's been, going to jams and festivals, and you talk with other women, and at gigs too, and just, so I think you do. I think for me, I've picked up little bits and pieces and community and building that, more than having oh, this is my mentor, and saying, and then there's of course wonderful men in that community and in those roles too for me, and continue to be, and so it's interesting as I'm getting older, and having students that I see that there's, I'm kind of becoming that for a few people, which is a cool thing, but unexpected.
Yeah. No, it's so great. I've had a couple things maybe presented to me off and on over the last couple job-wise, where it's oh, if I took this, I would leave teaching. And then I love teaching, but I also love the idea of some other things, So I'm oh, yeah, maybe I'll just 180 my life and move and do this thing, whatever, right?
Right.
But then there is always that part of me that's oh, but then I take out of this system the very thing I wanted when I was little, which is a female that's there teaching, right? That is that person. What were you
Which
saying?
I was just going to say, that's my first semester here in Oak Ridge was your first semester, and I was just taking a guitar lesson, I think, and that was so cool in the sense that you're I think you're a guitar major now, you do this, and there was so much time where I just needed to be fed something, and I was working on campus and doing all this stuff here, but just here it comes, and told me I could do it and play, and within 6 months, because I was always self-taught and played a few chords or did whatever, and within 6 months it's I didn't even remember that, what I used to sound like or whatever, and I think I've had several women throughout, the last 20 years of my life that have really just grabbed a hold of me and helped guide me and have been there and pushed me and do this, why aren't you doing this, and it's been really lucky to have had that. And thanks, Emily.
Yeah.
Taking that off.
Jamie was like a remarkable student, actually. So she was a delight to teach.
Well, I was just gonna say again, I'm so blessed that the artist I work for just has been the ultimate dream mentor I could have ever wanted and prayed for myself. I'm kind of repeating what I said a second ago, just the way she just has believed in me, and so often, more times than I even believe in my own self. And she didn't have to give me that chance, you know? Like, she's had tons of openers the 40-plus year career she's had, you know, and she didn't have to give me that opportunity, but the fact that she was willing to do that for somebody like me in West Texas and just snatch me up like that and put a stranger on her bus who they didn't know me at all. But she's lived it. She's walked through. I wish she was here to tell you the stories she has told me and the thick of when it was really bad for women in the music industry years ago, and just the path that she has paved and the things she's seen. She's dealt with the motherhood. She's dealt, you know, missing things from her children's activities and had the, you know, rejections and had the no's and so she's seen it all, and the fact that she'd be so willing to help me in those things, dealing with what I've dealt with. And so many times I've tried to say, no, I don't think I can do that. And she says, here's 5 shows, you're gonna open them for me because I know you can do it, and I've seen you do it. And that changes your life. That keeps you going. I easily could have been done with my career years ago, and she kept me going. And in the same way, I get to, again, what I said earlier, is pass that on to other people along the way. And you find yourself in those unexpected situations. You're like, oh, I am being this for somebody, and I didn't even know that. And it's just beautiful. And I can't speak on it enough. So, yeah, it's hard to even put into words of how much it has meant to me personally, and it's life-changing. It really is.
Yeah, a good mentor is, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe one thing as I'm listening to you guys, I'm thinking about how important it is for everyone here, but especially the women here, to be thinking about, like, how am I being a mentor to the people around me?
Yeah.
You know, like, am I living my life in a way where I am that and a friend?
Right.
You know, I am that and a colleague. I am that in a whatever. There isn't this rule out there where you have to be 10 years, 15, 20 years older to be a mentor. Your mentors can come from all over,
Oh, yeah.
right? And so maybe one thing we think about as we leave here today is that. I have a question that I want to let you guys kind of sit with and respond to as well, which would be for the men in here. Like, if you had advice for the men, what could they do in terms of how they work as professionals that would be helpful to the women in the industry, women in the arts? Things they could do, things they could not do. Some of that might be real obvious.
I guess, like, and this might be a little bit too altruistic, but just take gender out of it completely.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I feel like the sexism sort of has 2 sides. It has the intentional, cruel, I'm doing this because I believe you're lesser than, which I really feel like, at least personally in my experience, I face way less of. Alternatively, you have the one where it's intended to be helpful. I am going to treat you differently because you're a woman. And I think a lot of times it would be better off if you sit back and help the person the best that you can help the person. And if they need help, they will ask you for that help, and well, at least they hopefully feel comfortable enough to ask those questions and ask for that support in the way they truly need it.
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion.
I agree. Our band leader is a male, and he could have easily just taken it easy on me when I got and stepped into that role. These are hit songs that this artist has, and every part matters. And it was a brand new role for me. I mean, I could play, you know, rhythm guitar averagely at the time, but he he treated me just like he would have treated he treated the guys who he hired to be in our band, and expected me to meet that level, and I appreciated that.
Yeah.
And he is right up there with Lori as being one of my most favorite mentors as a male. And so yeah, taking that gender out of it completely and just, treat, like have the same expectations either way, no matter
That's
what.
a great way to say it, yeah.
Don't lessen the load just because she's a woman or a female. Hold her to the same expectations. And I am so glad that he did that, because I was not a lead player at all. And he said, well, in the record, except for Monday, the intro and solo is all acoustic, and that's your job. And so we're going to sit here, and if I have to sit here with you, and we do this till your fingers bleed, we're going to do that. And we did that. And it wasn't like harsh. I'm making it sound way, he's the sweetest, most down-to-earth man. But I now play one of her most signature solos and intros in her song every night during her show. And if I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity if he wouldn't have held me to that same standard. And I'm so thankful for that. And so that was a good point.
Yeah. Nice. And I think, for the many of the men that I've got to work with that I really respect and enjoy working with, they do. They treat me as an equal. They treat me with respect. They treat me as a human, and so we're not trying to do this dance around one another of like, oh, I've got to treat you different, or I don't want to step on your toes. And so it's just we're all people, right? And I'm checking myself too. If I find myself falling into that role of being judgy or more competitive with another woman, then I'm like, okay, I just need to, this is a person too, just like me, and how do I treat her with respect? And so, I think it's like you say, taking gender out of it, and how do I treat another person like I want to be treated, with the respect and those high standards, and being a professional, and which I think is what we're all striving to do, and just add that next layer to our professionalism.
Okay, we have about 2 minutes left, so I think with the final 2 minutes, I'm going to open it up, and if you guys have comments or questions, let you ask them. It doesn't have to be even on this topic. We've got some very talented women on this stage, so you might have questions about their career even. But I want to at least give you that opportunity while you have all these great minds together on this stage. And I don't have a microphone to pass around, so just, Rayleigh, just be loud.
So how would y'all handle navigating starting a career, starting to play live, and feeling that you're stepping on other people's toes because you're trying to assert yourself?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I try to remind myself of, because even now sometimes I'm like, oh, am I stepping on people's toes, is there's room for everybody. As I think, and if I'm coming from that concept and that mindset, then I'm less competitive, or it's not even that, like you say, just like feeling like, oh man, there's a finite amount of gigs or resources or connections, and I think that's a beautiful thing about this program, is I felt like people always made room for me. And so I think if part of it's adopting that mindset, and just being a good communicator is to the best of your ability, and just say if you're like, am I stepping on somebody's toes, and like say there's a gig you're trying to book that's somebody else's regular gig or something that's maybe obvious like that, and just reaching out and telling people where you're at and what you're trying to do. And more often than not, I find that people are willing to help you out.
And as someone that tends to lean that way as well, most of the times that I have directly confronted that, being like, well, I feel like I'm inconveniencing you, the answer is pretty much all the time, you're not. And it's just something that I had made in my head, which I do think is a little bit of a cultural thing for women, but that's probably a much longer conversation if we're trying to fix the world's problems. But, definitely don't let that hold you back. And if you really feel like you can't move forward because of how strong that feeling is, I think that's great advice, to just be direct and be like, this is what I'm looking for, is this okay?
Yeah.
Is this too strong? Or do you need, whatever.
Yeah.
So. She said that's perfect.
Are there any other questions that you want to get in? Yeah.
This is directed more towards Annie, but I'm doing live sound reinforcement, and I find it that because of my kind of biology and that I don't really work out, I have a hard time lifting heavy things that guys usually can off the bat. I don't know if you've experienced that, but like should I be thinking about that too harshly now, or can I like adapt to that in the future?
So it's a little bit interesting. I do think that staying healthy and active is important when you're gigging, just because it can be physically demanding. However, in the role that I am in now, I'm always asking someone else to do it, which is a skill in and of itself. So the important part, I think, that I always felt like was important was if somebody went to lift something heavy, instead of stepping back because I was like, oh, it's too heavy, I can't lift it, I would then, hey, can you guys come help me do this? Because if there's 4 of us lifting up something that's heavy, normally we could do that. And maybe that's boys and me, but I would always be a part of it. But you shouldn't ever, like if something is too heavy for you, picking it up and either hurting yourself or dropping something or whatever doesn't, like that's not effective either. But be a part of it, ask for help. Hey, And so that's like, and I think that'll carry over if you start doing gigs and you have stagehands and stuff. You kind of have that built in already of like being able to use your team and ask for help, which is a really hard skill to develop.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any others? Okay. All right, so I think this concludes then this panel. Before we wrap up, I just want to make sure everyone knows there are performances tonight on the stage outside by the track. Of course, that goes throughout the night. Concerts there again tomorrow night. Concerts there, of course, all day Saturday. We have flyers around the building with a QR code in the bottom right-hand corner that you can scan to see the schedule for the entire next 2 days, not just the concerts, but the panels, clinics, etc. So definitely check that out if you have not already, and make sure that you can attend those events that look meaningful to you. We hope you participate a whole lot over the next couple days. And before we totally say goodbye, once again, let's thank these panelists for being here. Please feel free to come up and chat with them. Maybe there are some things that you actually did want to ask, but not in this group. And so now is your chance, right? So we are done here. And I know everyone has things to do and places to go, but if you'd like to come up and chat for just like a second, please do.
Thanks,
Don't go anywhere. Get a picture.
Emily.
We're getting ready.